will make you cry. Good morning and welcome to the vlog. In this reading vlog, I am going to be annotating for the first time. I'm really excited. I wanted to annotate this book that I listened to last year, and it is Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. And I was listening to this book last year, and there's so many passages that I was like, I just want to come back to. I really want to think about. So I'm going to read this passage at my funeral. It is so freaking beautiful. This is Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death, and this is about Mrs. Death, who is the Grim Reaper, but she is also just an everyday middle-aged woman who lives among us. And throughout this book, she has this interaction with Wolf, who is a writer. He's a journalist. He's seen Mrs. Death before during his really traumatic childhood, and they have these conversations together, and Mrs. Death wants to be known. Just a very, very interesting premise, perfect for the spooky season. The themes I've been thinking about are, number one, I want to have a discussion about this passage with somebody. Number two, girl, I feel you. And number three, please read this at my funeral. I might add some more to that, but I got like an annotating kit, I guess. These are like perfect. I feel like these are like the perfect colors for this type of theme of book. It's very back to school, September, October vibe. So I love this. I'm gonna not use every single one of these colors. I'm gonna kind of pick out a few, but I absolutely, probably this red, maybe this yellow, these like darker colors here. I really like it. And then I'm also gonna pick out a few of these colors as well, but I'm super excited. Let's start reading Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. I started reading a few pages and I have done my annotation, what would you call it? Table of context? Wow, I wrote a whole dissertation. I don't know how to say anything. All right, so you can't probably read it too much, but I put it on like the kind of publication page. And I have a highlight color for each one, and then like a tabby color. I'm not going to use tabbies every single time I highlight because I'm probably going to highlight a lot, but really the ones I want to go back to, I'm going to put tabbies on. So the first one is, I want to talk about this with somebody. So I'll probably be sharing these quotes with you guys. This one is, this is me. This one is, please read this at my funeral, which I think I talked about that a minute ago. And then the last one that I added is, I'm crying. So, because I was starting to read this and I was like, nope, this book will make you cry. Will definitely make you cry. So I'm going to kind of start doing it. I already highlighted a passage on like page 2 already, and I'll read a bit of it. Basically, she is the Grim Reaper, and how the Grim Reaper is not a man, but a woman. For surely she who bears it, she who gave you life, can she who has the power to take it. The one is she, and only she who is invisible can do the work of death. And there is no human more invisible, more readily talked over, ignored, betrayed, and easily to walk past than a woman, a poor black woman, a homeless black beggar woman with naughty, natty hair. So, yeah, okay. So, I'm literally on page 2 because it's definitely going to be slower read, but I'm like digesting it slowly. It's lovely. I'm taking a little bit of a reading break, and I'm gonna go to Anthropology, Barnes and Noble, and possibly the library. I want to get a few like kind of fall things during this weekend, so I'll be doing that, and then be going back to reading. I have it in the car here with me just in case I'm like need to charge the car or I go get coffee or something else. I have my book with me, do not worry. Hello, I am back from the stores. Let me show you guys what I got and then I'll get back into reading. So I went to Barnes & Noble to get Re-Witched, which is a very cozy, sweet, witchy bookstore book that is written by Lucy Wood, who I absolutely love on YouTube. I'll put her YouTube link down below, but she wrote a book and it just very recently came out, so I wanted to pick that up. But it was buy one, get one 50% off. So I got The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which I've heard amazing things about. It is like a fantasy book. I don't know too much. I've just heard that it's good. I don't like to know too much about fantasy because I don't know. I'm either gonna like it or I'm not. The premise doesn't usually, it's usually the writing that gets me into it and not the premise. So got The Assassin's Apprentice. Once spooky season's over, I'm gonna go full dive into fantasy, so this is a good one to have. Speaking of spooky season, I got something from Anthropology that I've been looking out for forever. I also got this cute little top. I think it's cute. Obviously, I really like this color right now because everything is in this color, but it's like a little tank top. What I went in for is this. I went in for this pumpkin glass. It's so freaking beautiful. It's blown glass and then they put these little pumpkin things on it. I wanted the pumpkin one specifically because this can last through November for like Thanksgiving. It also works for Thanksgiving. I like to get things for my like holiday season that I can possibly use for more than one holiday. Excited about that. Now I'm gonna go back into reading Mrs. Death. Hello, I've been reading and I have a couple of thoughts. One is I forgot that the desk is a character in this book, which I find really kind of lovely. I don't know, this is kind of an odd book and honestly it's way more on the characters than it is any real plot. There's like really not a lot of plot. So if you're somebody who like needs a good plot to a book, this is not for you. The other thing I was thinking about is that if you're in a not great place, especially if you've had a recent death or it's around an anniversary of a death, I would probably not read this. But you might want to, right? You might want to read it just to like feel like somebody understands what you're going through. But I would just be a little bit careful reading it. It is like, it's not like it's gory or violent at all, but it does constantly talk about death and dying. So if that is not for you, I mean, it has death twice in the title. So I don't think that's like a spoiler at all, but it is just kind of like more existential. So if you're a kind of existential person like I am, you'll like it. But if you're needing like, you really like more of like a plot driven book, or you feel like this might trigger you in some kind of way, maybe this is not the book for you. So just wanted to say that before we got too much into the video. annotating, and I'm really loving that I'm annotating this book. It's honestly just vibes. It's all about like Mrs. Death talking about death and why death is important, and why and how some people think about death and some people are really scared to think about and really try to avoid death. And I find it really interesting from like a theory perspective. There's this theory of like death anxiety theory, and I can kind of link some articles about it. But when I worked in oncology, that was something that we learned about. It was like, and palliative care. I also worked in palliative care. And like some people are, understand that death comes for everybody and are able to kind of live within that and able to live within their values and do the things they want to do and try to be like the best person they can be. And some people really don't like to think about death and dying. And I feel like this video is gonna be shadow banned the amount of times I say death in it. So it is what it is. But I find it so interesting because in death anxiety theory, the theory is that a lot of these unhealthy behaviors and cognitions come from the anxiety of thinking about death and trying to not and trying to avoid. So it's just, maybe I'll have some more tangible thoughts in the morning, but it is just really interesting reading this book coming from that theory of like, it is good and healthy to be thinking about death. It's not necessarily good to be like overly anxious thinking, but like, yes, we all die, everyone dies, this is a part of life, it's what makes life worth living sometimes. And talking about it in a way that's very normal, I find this really helpful. I think if if I have a patient, I've had patients in the past who have a lot of death anxiety, and this would definitely be like an exposure therapy for sure. But being able to talk about it, I think, is so freeing, and being able to think about it without fear. Well, there can be fear, but like this, like staying with the fear and letting the fear subside, I think can be so helpful. So yeah, I just really, this is not at all an academic book, but like I like coming to some books from an academic lens. I'm really, really loving though Mrs. Death's perspective and saying like, this is actually like a good thing and I shouldn't be demonized because this is what I do. And I'm really liking Wolf's character. He is a Black man who grew up, I think they're in London, worked, and this is not a spoiler because it shows up pretty early in the book, but his mother and many of his neighbors and friends died from kind of a freak fire in their apartment building, and he was able to kind of get out of it. But the fire happened because the building was made very cheaply and there wasn't like, no one really cared about the safety of the building. So there's a lot of like commentary around low SES communities and death, which I also find really interesting as well. Yeah, I'm really, really loving it. I'm really loving annotating it. I only have 2 tabbies so far, so I need to, because I've been like, oh, it's going to be too many tabbies, but I think I need to push myself to do more tabbies, and highlighting as well. I really want to highlight like everything, so then that's been like pushing me not to highlight. So I'm trying to just find my balance, because I do want to have like the sections that I do think about or come back to, because there's so many parts of these books that I could just like come back to and like read it on its own. Again, it has basically no plot at all, so you could really read from like any point in the book. You might not know as much of what's going on, but like not much is going on, to be honest. So that's that. I'm gonna keep on reading. I need to go and switch out the laundry. Very exciting Saturday night for me. But yeah, I'm enjoying this a lot. I think the last time I talked to you guys, I was talking about death anxiety theory. It's actually, I was reading more and I got to a passage that really encapsulates it. Well, kind of. And it's not death anxiety theory, it's terror management theory. And a lot of it is like the avoidance of talking about death, because the anxiety is that if you talk about it or you do things or whatever you're around it, then it will bring it to you. It's also a theory of like why religions, at least they believe religions like developed afterlives in order to manage our own fear of death and non-existence. And Wolf and Mrs. Death are like talking to each other, and she is like asking him about talking to her. Does that make him feel like she's gonna come for him sooner? Does he want her to come for him sooner? So it's like an interesting conversation. I just wanted to correct myself. It's terror management theory, which is kind of death anxiety falls under. But yeah, the passage I'm talking about is on 103. It's not like a good quote, but she basically is like, hey, are you scared? Like, are you scared that by writing, because he is like writing a book about her, by writing this book, are you bringing death to yourself? So it's just like an interesting thing to think about. There is something about that, like talking about it. Like even now, I'm like, I can feel like a bit of like, oh my God, am I like, I think there is something to it. So yeah, I'm probably gonna read the rest tonight. It's almost 9 p.m. Or not the rest tonight. I'm gonna read more tonight, but I probably won't film too much more. So I'll probably see you guys in the morning. Hello, my hair is still drying, but I mostly got ready, and I don't know about any of you guys, but I can never dry my hair all the way. I just do not have the patience for it, so I just dry this part all the way, and then the rest. It is what it is, right? I made a little bit of coffee, but to give you guys an update, Mrs. Death, before I feel like I might just finish it, the next kind of reading sprint that I do. But they're going really into like mental illness, specifically bipolar disorder. It sounds like the author has probably either a diagnosis of bipolar or has a loved one with bipolar, because that's kind of what the mental illness they go in through. And the way that they write is like, you've had some sort of experience in the mental health system, specifically in the UK. There's also a documentary on the BBC about writing this book. So I need to watch that and see if I can find it, because I feel like it would be really interesting, really understanding her thought process. I'll be honest, some of the chapters are a little odd and I don't understand them. But okay, I also want to say, look, can you guys see it? Can you see the tabbies that I've done? Are you proud of me? I'm not being stingy with my tabbies. I mean, it might look a little stingy, but I personally don't feel like I'm being stingy with my tabbies. So I'm excited about that. I have maybe like 80 pages left. So, and honestly, a lot of the pages are like quick because, for example, if you can see like here, it goes fast because it's like the word count. Oh, this is a good example. It's a lot of poetry. So the word count is pretty low. So it's a pretty quick read, I'll say. It's just like the content. It might bring up some stuff for you. So there's that. I'm liking it. I'm understanding. Oh, I just understand the cover. Okay, Death is a rabbit, and Wolf is the name of the other character. I was like, how does a wolf have to do with this book? Wolf is the name of the freaking other character. Hello, I wanted to give you guys an update because I have finished Mrs. Death, and I actually went through a couple old passages. So I was like, no, I do actually want to highlight those or put tabbies in them. So this is like a very interesting book to do annotation with because it was more poetry. It was like 50% poetry. So I felt like it was easier for me. I could have also done it based on like themes. Like there's a theme of the rabbit, and there was a theme of like darker themes that I'm not gonna say on YouTube, but there's just like different themes, and I think that helped me kind of conceptualize if I do want to annotate for like a more traditional type of book of like, okay, thinking about specific themes that might come up. I don't really know how people annotate for books that they haven't already read yet. If you are an annotating girly or boy, let me know like how you think of it down below because I'm like, how do I annotate? Do you just like think of things as they come along and then like kind of backtrack? I'm just very curious. It really made the reading experience so much richer for me. So I very much enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it. And I'm like so excited about all these freaking tabbies I have. I would actually be interested, I'm not going to do it right now, but how many of each one. I think the most I did was I want to talk to somebody about this, and then probably this is me, and no, then it's this is me, it looks like, and then I'm crying, and then please read at my funeral. It's probably the least amount. There's 2 of those. And then there's 3 of this is me, and then the I want to talk about this and I'm crying colors kind of look similar, so I can't tell how many are in each. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I really enjoyed it. A good first annotating experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more, and tell me about your annotating journey or how you think about annotating, because I do want to annotate a like more classic novel or a classic work of fiction. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.